You actually can get a layer deeper and you can bridge from customer search query, or targeting expression to CID, and being able to say, not just, what am I targeting, not just what sort of query or behavior am I, trying to reach, but who.
We have these two main buckets of audiences, our rule-based and our lookalike audiences, and they're used for two kind of totally different strategies.
Hi there, I'm Patrick, co-founder of Flywheel, and I'm joined today with my colleague Troy to talk about AMC Audiences in sponsored ads. Troy, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Patrick.
Tell me a little bit about the product and what have you learned so far?
Really excited to talk about this topic. It's really, really exciting and something I've spent quite a bit of time digging into over the last few months. Kind of taking this long-standing existing thing, the ability to create custom audiences, repurposing them for sponsored ads, and then being able to actually apply them to campaigns as a bid multiplier, bid adjustment on top of whatever your current keyword bidding already is. And so instead of it being a pure play group of users is how it's applied, you already have these targeting strategies on where you want to show up. The audience adds a layer of to whom you want the audience to show up for. So it stacks where do I want my ad to show up with to which users do I want these ads to show up to, which is really cool.
I look at it like, for the, last 15 years or so, the atoms of Amazon have been the ASIN and the customer search query. And now the aperture is, getting widened, and that you still have the ASIN, but you actually can get a layer deeper and you can bridge from customer search query, or targeting expression to CID, and being able to say, not just, what am I targeting, not just what sort of query or behavior am I, trying to reach, but who. And that to me is, I think, sort of fascinating from a brand perspective, in that, Amazon has this, privacy first construct via, Amazon Marketing Cloud. So we don't have to worry about touching PII or anything that, could get us in trouble, but we're able to then now say like, oh, well, what is the profile of the person that we find most valuable? And then how do we then use those bid modifiers in order to reach those people? When you look at these various audiences that you've been able to create and then expand upon via the bid multipliers, what's worked well and what surprised you?
We have these two main buckets of audiences, our rule-based and our lookalike audiences, and they're used for two kind of totally different strategies. So the pure play efficiency strategy, one of the most interesting ways is to be able to actually manually move customers down your purchasing funnel, like within the purchasing journey. I don't just show a bunch of DSP ads and hope they go on site and buy it later. I can actually specifically modify my bid for those users that have viewed one of my DSP ads. Conversion rates we've seen have been really strong when we're able to actually not just hope that someone has viewed an ad, but actually manually get them through the touch points and then really boost those conversion rates.
So the construct would be, you serve them a DSP ad, customer sees the DSP ad, and then that like ain't nobody clicking on a DSP ad, so that's a view through. So they're going back to Amazon and then they're searching, and then you're then using a bid modifier to make sure that customer actually sees sponsored ads when they go onto the site and type in whatever query.
Exactly. And so because we don't have to rely on them having clicked on anything in DSP, right? We can just build our audience on that incredible AMC data on like everyone who's even viewed that DSP impression. It's really strong conversion rates we observe after the fact on those. And you can even, specifically target your SP strategy. And, I'm going to set a low base bid and just make sure I'm hitting everyone that's come through the purchase cycle.
There will always be a role for deterministic targeting, but at a certain point, like in order to grow a brand, you have to bridge to probabilism. But what's interesting here is like, okay, sure, I can spin up probabilistic targeting via lookalikes, but my measurement is deterministic. So I have, pinpoint precision in sort of what is the efficacy of the ads, because I know, that it matches on a one-to-one basis, and I'm able to report on that of, hey, these are the customers, that saw the ad, and then, hey, this is what they did, i.e. they bought something. That to me is a very interesting unlock, especially if I start looking at it longitudinally over a longer period of time and thinking through sort of the 5-year look back within AMC and the value of these various audiences. But before we get to that, how, when you look at, some of these, the lookalike or the more probabilistic audiences, what are you seeing work well? And how are you thinking about those?
So I think that our most successful lookalike audience so far has been like an SNS lookalike audience, where we don't just look at users who have already subscribed and saved, but those who have shown a willingness to subscribe and save outside and pulling them in. When you are a CPG or any other type of advertiser that would love to grow your subscribe and save base, it's super, super valuable to be surfacing your ads to customers that have shown a willingness to have SNS in other walks of their business, not necessarily just your data set, right? When we look into the data, that would show really strong rates in our SNS rates when we've been able to slap those SNS lookalike audiences on top of existing campaigns.
I would much rather sort of get a customer that's going to be, highly loyal, that's going to subscribe, that's not going to churn. If they're going to be that customer, I'm willing to pay a whole lot more money. That becomes interesting for brands, and that, if they get them to subscribe, the customer, is not coming back and searching and, potentially being pulled out of market. And Amazon prioritizes that inventory. So even if you have supply chain disruptions, it's still going to be in stock, and they're still going to, they're going to have the encumbrance, and they're going to make sure to fulfill it. So that makes a lot of sense. What else? What other audiences have you found that are interesting?
Another really good one has been your new to brand lookalike audiences. You're limited a little bit in your ability to get new to brand audiences because you can't just create a data set that's everyone on Amazon save for those that have purchased my product. Unfortunately, there are mins and maxes on audience size. But with the new to brand lookalike audiences, you can basically say, hey, I want the users that are similar to those that have been new to brand purchasers of my product, and everyone wants to grow their new to brand rates. The fact that you can just kind of take that simple new to brand lookalike, go in, drive those similar users. We've seen good new to brand rate increases,
especially if we then append that with a 5-year look back, and I've given Amazon this feedback, but like the language of new to brand is awful because a lot of these people, they aren't actually new to brand. A lot of these folks are channel shifting. But I appreciate that, within the 5-year look back, they sort of throw out that construct and they allow us to build it ourselves. So if we look at this over a longer period of time, well, we can start saying like, well, what is a new customer? What is a lapsed customer? What is that right, time period? The customer arc and repurchase cycle, of a, bag of Doritos versus a mattress are vastly different. And so I think in some ways, this is a language exercise, to sort of, help brands see, the insights that Amazon, is allowing us to build on top of, but finely tuned to each brand and looking at the uniqueness of each brand and each category. That to me is, I think, sort of one of the big opportunities is seeing that it's like every brand's a little different and every category is a little different. How search heavy are they? How much research do they do? How much do they hit PDPs? What's the time between first research and then purchase? What's the repeat rate? And so I think, every brand is going to be really different. And some of the analysis I've seen, sort of mapping out those purchase arcs and when you should, reach people with ads, and what does the funnel, propagation look like? And then what does it take to sort of move folks, through the purchase cycle? And then the repurchase cycle is a fascinating one.
Right. A consumer electronics brand is going to have 100% new to brand rate. And so it's going to matter less to them what they consider to be, what Amazon, if you use a pre-baked 1 year since last purchase as your new to brand rate. Like you were saying, we've had this conversation with Amazon where it's been like, are we going to get to a future where we can define what these different, adjectives mean? And I think we will kind of keep getting towards that to keep the customization level.
They want to empower the brands and the partners, to dig into this thing and create the right constructs. The idea of new to brand was a starting point, not an end point. It starts to introduce sort of a way of thinking for consumer brands who have not, outside of their D2Cs, necessarily seen this information before. And then as we go forward, I think it becomes much more nuanced around, how we talk about it and how we implement, depending on sort of what the brand is and where they want to go.
And Amazon's continuously started to roll out more and more tools specifically targeting new to brand. We've just seen the release of sponsored brands getting specific new to brand multipliers. Amazon built it in a way that they essentially function as an AMC audience, but a pre-built audience for everyone. And we're going to see more and more pre-built audiences for Amazon so that you don't have to do it yourself. But this is kind of the first in Amazon's push to go do that, is the sponsored brands pre-built new to brand audience that you can just go and push it on.
Well, it's the fun part. I mean, it's a compliment. It's like a lot of the audiences that we've built within AMC. And then, we talk about them and then they copy and paste and then they launch it. And, and that's the game. And that's how it's always, always has been and always will be. So it's it's sort of a, how do you stay 6 months ahead? How do you invent on behalf of our clients and push Amazon? And, and sort of what is what's a commodity tomorrow is innovation yesterday. And, how do we keep innovating on behalf? So, all right, on that one, what's next? Where are you focused? What are you excited about?
We're excited to just keep making these audiences customizable within our application, and to make, start to give the ability to differentiate from the DSP. There's a lot of what some of the pre-existing DSP architecture we had in place doesn't really translate as smoothly over to sponsored ads as well. Right now, we're constrained to one audience on a particular campaign. So if you want to have a unique strategy, you need to make really bespoke individual audiences with lots and lots of SQL jargon within them. From a product standpoint, we're in a push to make that easier and exclude purchasers.
So you can't say, you only give you one audience bid modifier, so you can't stack them, so you can't run a negative. So then you have to, within the SQL statement within AMC, you have to add the negative into the SQL before you deploy it into sponsored ads.
Right. So from a product strategy, we're looking to integrate that capability down the road as we progress. We expect Amazon to give the ability to assign multiple audiences per campaign, probably within the year. But I do not expect them to allow for negativing.
When I think about audiences, the negatives are more important than the positives. If you under negative, you take credit for the sun coming up. And so, having those strong negatives will drive more incremental GMV. So very much support you nerding out in SQL and making sure those statements, include the negatives.
Beyond that, we're looking to build in really robust reporting so you can really understand the full impact of your audiences, how well it's done to you. And then from an Amazon strategy, we expect more and more usage of audiences. Are bid adjustments as your lever to pull for audiences going to be the final push? We don't think so. What's next? We don't really have a terrific understanding of. I don't expect in the short term to have audiences in place of keywords. Where Amazon is going with that, we will see, but we do know that audiences are going to be a huge part of their go-forward strategy.
Got it. Well, it brings it back full circle. I mean, the building blocks, are, CIDs and ASINs. And, this is a really fun one to build on the CID expression, and excited to see what you build next. So really appreciate your time this morning, and fun to catch up, and congrats on shipping some great product.
Thank you, Patrick. It's been a pleasure.